I am Erin from Vancouver, YAD, and I'll be the host for today. Welcome to our very first English public talk for the BLIA North America Cloud Lecture Series. Today, it is our honor to have Venerable Dr. Huei, the Deputy Abbot of Foguangshan Monastery, to share with us on the topic of a modern reflection on life and death. Venerable Dr. Huei is currently the Deputy Director of Ministry of Education at Nanhua University Life Education Center. He is also a full-time professor at Nanhua University, teaching religious studies and life and death studies. And he's also a professor at Foguang University as well. When it comes to the topic of life and death, I think many of us might be afraid of death or are unwilling to face it when the time has come. Whether that be the end of our lifetime or tragedies that happen around us, it always seems to be difficult to face and accept death. So how can we change that perspective and see life and death in a different way? And what can we learn by examining life and death? Today's talk will be around an hour, followed up by a 30-minute Q&A. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A function on Zoom or type your questions in the YouTube chat box and our volunteer will transfer them over onto Zoom. And during Q&A, I will ask all of your questions on behalf for you. Now, let us invite Dr. Venerable Huei to talk about the modern reflection on life and death. Please join palms. 师父吉祥。
吉祥. So thank you. Hello everybody. First I want to thank Venerable Jue for the invitation to give an online talk on the very important topic of life and death. From ancient time, every culture and civilization, East and West, the life and death is a taboo. However, on the other hand, life and death issue and phenomena are just happening in our daily life. So nobody can avoid that. So we have to deal with it. Not only we have to deal with it, but to deal with it wisely and gracefully. But before my formal talk, I want to share you with some of my experience. So I have been pondering and thinking about life and death for 50 years. So you may wonder, how come you look not so old? How can you think about life and death for 50 years? So I will share some of my background. Since I was a childhood, my dream at that time, my aspiration was to become a scientist. So I want to discover the secret, a mystery of the universe. I chose math as my major in Taiwan University, but when I was in high school, so next picture, my father was assigned a mission to stay in Jinmen for 2 years. You see the graphic, the Jinmen, here is Jinmen, and the other side is the Xiamen. From 1969 to 1970. He had a mission to train the Marine Corps for the intelligence operation training. And at that time, because the two sides of the strait is still on the war state, although there were no ground fighting, but every other day, the two sides will use the cannon to shoot each other. So most of the soldiers live in the tunnel. Okay, even the hospital was built on inside the mountain, like the tunnel. So because it's very humid. So my father stayed there for 2 years, got some the body condition. So after he returned to Taiwan, he felt uncomfortable, but I had no time to check up in hospital. In 1970, he was supervising a military maneuver and broke his left leg. Although broke leg was not fatal, but it's still very serious. So he was sent to hospital for operation. But unfortunately, he suffered 4 major operations, and the doctor could not put the broken leg. And he stayed in hospital for 5 years until I graduated from university. So my university year, I was spent my whole university year to attend my father. So I witnessed a lot of life and death in the hospital. And that made me begin to learn Buddhism and think about the life and death issue. And this with my parents. My parents in 1987, before I went to Philadelphia Temple University to study. So after my father stayed in hospital for 4 years, we spent 4 Lunar New Year in hospital. And my father got a nickname. All the other patients not call him Colonel Chen, but call him vice president of the hospital, because no other patient lived in the hospital so long as him. And my father was a calligrapher. His calligraphy is very good. So our Master Xingyun, invited him to stay in Foguangshan to do the calligraphy. And he also teach calligraphy in the Buddhist college. So you will, okay, this photo was taken after my mother passed away. And I brought all my family to Foguangshan to thank Master for the helping of my mother's funeral. So after 4 years of hospitalization, I persuaded my father to have an operation to remove his leg. That saved his life. And if you have time to visit Foguangshan, you will see my father's calligraphy work. This is how to become a Foguang person or Foguang people. This is my father's work. The Foguang people, how to become a person, the 10 characters of Foguangshan. So I prepared the topic, a modern reflection on life and death, with a subheading, deciphering the natural mechanism. The subheading, deciphering the natural mechanism and the mystery of death, dying, and rebirth. I begin with some questions concerning the issue of life and death. These questions will come to our mind sooner or later in our life. So have you ever wondered whether there is any meaning of life when we are facing a lot of sin in our life? If there is, then what is the meaning of life? And what is the purpose or value of life? Sooner or later, these questions will come to your mind. Have you ever wondered whether there is a next life or some kind of existence after one's death? If there is, what would it be, and where would it be, and how would it be? Well, many people would say you can't prove there is the life after death by science. Of course, we cannot prove directly by science there is a life after death, but by the same token, neither can we disprove there is a life after death. Well, actually, we can do some scientific research. Although not directly, but indirectly, we can prove there is a life after death. For example, you read the Dr. Brian Weiz's book, Many Life, Many Master, and Professor Ian Stevenson. He did a lot of research about the children's previous memory, and he wrote a lot of books. Some are academic research. Okay, so would it be or where would it be? How would it be? It depends. It depends. It's different from people to people. So is our future life determined, or we have our own choices? So what is the essential momentum of our existence? So why death? Why death? Why do we have to die? And why can't we just live forever? So that death has any meaning to life? I want to start by talking from Steve Jobs. So you may wonder why I talk about Steve Jobs. Is there anything to do with the life and death? Sure. The purpose for me to quote from Steve Jobs is to help you to realize the natural agent and the mechanism of life and death, and help you to positive facing and thinking of death and dying. So in 2005, Steve Jobs was invited by Stanford University to give a commencement lecture on the graduation day. And in his lecture, he talked about particularly death. Because at that time, Steve Jobs was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. It is a very, very serious disease, almost incurable. And in his speech, he said, no one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to die to get there. And yet death is the destination we all share. No one has ever escaped it. And that is as it should be. Because death is very likely the single best invention of life is life change agent. Well, this sentence that is as it should be is full of Zen flavor. So we all know that Steve Jobs was a very devoted Zen practitioner. These are profound statements about life, about death. So Steve Jobs was taught the very core of life and death issue, and he treated it very seriously. But I think not thoroughly enough. Because he only mentioned death is very likely the single best invention of life. Well, this is a good point, but not thoroughly enough. So he continued, okay, it's life change agent. This is excellent, but not thoroughly enough. So as a matter of fact, not only death, including birth, aging, and illness, all are bad invention of life, and all are life change agent. But to say they are life change agent, still not enough. We can move a step further to say they are life change mechanism, not just agent, it's mechanism. And this statement is interesting that no one wants to die. Even people who want to go to heaven don't want to die to get there. Well, this point of view reflects a very common misunderstanding of death. So what most people think, so that we have to wait until we die first, and then we are able to go to Jesus heaven or Buddha's Pure Land. So this is a totally wrong concept about the death, the grace for death or grace for dying. So you don't have to die to get to heaven or Pure Land. You can live to get there. Not only you go to Pure Land, is to live to get there, not die to get there. So for those are eligible to go to heaven or Buddha's Pure Land, they don't have to wait until they die first. No. And so you don't have to wait until you die and then you are able to go to heaven or Buddha's Pure Land. No. So if you practice properly, faithfully, one-minded, and diligently, but of course, there is another condition that you have to make a vow. You have to make a vow to go to heaven or Pure Land, and then you practice diligently. Then when your time is up, and you are able to live consciously to get there directly and smoothly. So you have to keep your conscious clear, and you can go to heaven or Pure Land directly. You don't have to die first. So you go to heaven, just live to get there. So if in the future I will have a chance to meet Steve Jobs, so I would tell him, Steve, you don't have to die to go to heaven. You can live to get there. So I quote from the Amitabha Buddha Sutra. Okay, it is said in Amitabha Buddha Sutra that the Shariputra, if virtuous men and women hear Amitabha Buddha mentioned and hold firmly to his name for 1 day, 2 days, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 days, wholeheartedly without distraction. Then, when these people near the end of their life, Amitabha Buddha will appear in front of them with a host of sages. You see the picture? Amitabha Buddha will accompanied by a host of bodhisattvas to accept you. He will arrive at your home and house to accept, receive you. So if you have to keep your mind consciously and clearly, so you don't have to die. You have to live to get there. And then I'm going to share with you some fundamental concept and idea of life and death study. So someone would ask, would you please use a few words concisely describe the subject matter, so-called modern life and death study. Life, aging, illness, and death are all natural phenomena in human life. So life and death, well, actually life and death are the two sides of a coin of our daily life. So if we frankly face death with a positive and a healthy manner, so at the same time, reflect and contemplate life from the perspective of death. You from the point of death, it reflect life. And from the life after death, from the perspective of life at death to reflect life, then we will have a higher level of understanding, experience, and realizing about life. So therefore, through this kind of understanding of life and death, so not only we are more able to reveal and demonstrate the meaning and value of life, but also more able to take care of the old and attend the sick and calm the dying, especially when we do the hospice care, the terminal ill patient care. We can apply the knowledge and the philosophy of life and death to take care of the old and the dying. The next one I just mentioned, if we frankly face death with a positive manner, and think about, reflect life from the perspective of death and life after death, then we will have a higher understanding of life, both life and death. So therefore, with this kind of understanding of life and death, so not only we are more able to reveal the meaning of and value of life, but we are more able to take care of the old, attend the sick, and calm the dying. So when we do for example, the hospice care, to take of the terminal ill patient or take care of the old with the philosophy and the knowledge of life and death study. So we can more benefit those we are attending. So the ultimate goal for us to learn life and death is to elevate and fulfill the quality and the dignity of both life and death. So nowadays, because the advancement of the technology, we promote the quality and dignity of life, but very often we forget the quality of dignity of death. So we have to make both life and death have the quality and dignity. So the ultimate mystery of life lies in our deep reflection and the contemplation of death and dying. So the mystery of death is that it deepens our exploration and understanding of life. Okay, now I'm going to say something about the circulation of life and death. That's a wonderful natural mechanism through which life can continue. So why and how our life continue is through the circulation of life and death. So why death? Why can't we live forever? Suppose all the living creatures on Earth, including human being and other animal and plant, only live, growth with no death. Then what would happen eventually? So then all the resources on Earth would have long been depleted and exhausted. And eventually the Earth will become a dead planet. So it is because all living things have growth and death in a way which life and death alternate on and on, the circulation and circulation, so that the whole biological world can survive and have an ongoing long history. That's the secret and the mystery. So the mystery of dying and the regeneration is the life circle and the replacement of mechanism of cell in the body. That's a secret. So our healthy body, our body, our normal daily living and working, and the continuation of our life are actually maintained by the natural mechanism of ongoing death and the regeneration of all the cells in our body. But most of us do not understand and even unaware of that. The ongoing death and the regeneration of the cell in our body is the mystery. So according to the scientific research, so there are average 37.2 trillion cells in our body. And with the average of 10 billion to 20 billion cells per day, every day, which will be eliminated due to depletion, aging, or disability, and then step into death. And they are immediately replaced with newborn cells. So the ongoing play of life and death cell in our human body. So in our body, every day, every minute, the play of life and death occur. So the death and the regeneration of each cell, so the life cycle or the rate of replacement is different because the different location, different organ, different tissue. The rate was different, ranging from a few days to 100 of days. So, for example, the epithelial cell in the intestinal wall, the lifespan no more than 5 days, over 5 days. And then it's the retinal cell, it's 10 days. The lifespan of retinal cell is 10 days. 10 days. So the skin cell, for the skin cell, lifespan is 3 to 4 weeks. So for the blood cell, the lifespan is around 4 months. And the lung cell live for more than a year, around 400 to 500 days. So the longest lived, the brain and the neuron cells, no replacement. There's replacement from birth to death, no replacement. But averagely speaking, more than 60 years. But it will be aging. So on the whole, most of our cells in our body, except brain cell and neuron cell, they averagely have the freshness of less than a decade. So about 7 days. Generally speaking, about 7 days. Okay. So in other words, the body itself is actually much younger than the personal self, the social self that we have in mind. So, but we don't even know that. We have such an insight and mystery. So we have to thank the wonderful replacement mechanism of the cell in our body. So we should not feel that we ourselves are already old. So for example, biologically speaking or socially speaking, I just passed my 67th birthday last month. But physically, physically from the cell level, my whole body is just 7 years old. Averagely speaking, that's interesting. So, however, we should still pay special attention to and understand that the replacement of the cell and organ parts require good raw material. We have the nutrient supply. That is the food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe. Okay, but nowadays, because so the quality and the ingredient of and the nutrient we ingest are serious affect the status and result of the new renewal of cell and organ part. So you want to keep a healthy body, so you need to good nutrition, good supply. But nowadays, unfortunately, the pollution is very seriously. The pollution, the air pollution, the water pollution, more and more serious. That will endanger the health of our body and the replacement of the cell. So the efficiency and the function of the cell replacement mechanism in our body will gradually decrease and decline after middle age, about 40 to 50 years. So this is the process of gradual aging and the decline of our physical body. So from individual cell to the whole body. So, well, it's natural. It's natural. The cell replacement mechanism will gradually decrease and decline. So sooner or later, the function of our whole body will reach the tipping point of unable to continue to operate. So that after this is the natural death of the flesh. So death is the natural process of the phenomena. So from the point of view of nature's operation, the natural death that our flesh will eventually face is neither a abnormality nor an unjust fate imposed on us, but the only logical outcome of our flesh. And it's the blasting ending. Okay, it's a blasting ending of the natural law. So natural death is the only logical outcome of the flesh under the blasting ending of natural law. So we have to think the nature. So cell death and replacement are normal life mechanism process and the physical health phenomena. So death is health. Death is healthy. Okay. So the death and the replacement of cell is a normal life mechanism process and a healthy body phenomenon. So which is also the mystery of the continued growth of life. In other words, a healthy cell will die and be replaced. So all the normal and healthy cell will be naturally aging, dying, and then replacing themselves. So I want to emphasize this: a healthy cell will replace. So if unfortunately some cell in our body refuse to die in violation of the natural replacement mechanism, so not only do not die by themselves, but also invade and infect other cells around them. So also refuse to die. So even spread, transfer to other organ, tissue, or part. Also, they all refuse to die. Then what kind of cells are that? So everyone know when you hear that the horrifying cancer cell, the cancer cell. So the cancer cell are those cells in our body that refuse death and new life. So the healthy cell is accept death and replacement. Okay. So the cancer cell terribly destroying the natural mechanism of replacement of old cell with the new one, and even seriously threatening the continuation and the survival of the entire physical life. Okay. So in the human world, so all normal people will die. If there are people who will never die, Okay, the two kind. One kind is the angel of, we say, the immortal people, immortal people, and the other group is the monster, zombie, vampire, and the alien from the outer space in the science fiction movie. Okay, next. So if a normal person is bitten by a zombie, vampire, or alien, so he or she will immediately become their kind, like like the cancer. So extremely terrible. Okay. So you see some picture. So the Chinese zombie, okay, and the Western zombie, and the vampire, and the alien. Okay. So therefore, if we fully understand the natural mechanism of life, death and regeneration are the two sides of life march, then death, from the cell death to personal death, is not terrible at all. So, but immortal, from the cell's immortal to the individual's immortal, that is truly terrifying. So death is not so terrible as you think. So facing death with everyday mind and accepting death as the integral part of life. So from the microscope point of view, the constant death and the regeneration of the cell in our body is not only a natural mechanism for maintaining the normal development and operation of life of a sentient being, but also a kind of, it is the present progressive tense which occur all the time, every time, every minute it's happening. So this is the mystery and the subtlety of the life movement. Life. If it is not the case, then our life would not function properly and continue to operate. Okay. So from the macroscopic point of view, it is not only the death of this life and the birth of future life of individual should be so, but allow the whole group of life, to develop and continue. So this is a very profound life and there's philosophy and the mystery in it. Okay. So from ancient time, the mainstream thought of Eastern philosophy, including Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism, so does not pursue personal eternal life and immortality as the ultimate goal, but instead emphasize the popularity of the whole universe, the entire universe. So why do we people fear death so much? Because we don't understand the natural mechanism of life. So and there exists a serious false view of life and death in our thought. So most of us do not accept death is inseparable or in part an important aspect of life. Okay. So I hope everyone can see the true nature of death, to diffuse the senseless fear of death. So as a matter of fact, death is not so terrible as we think. So on the contrary, unable to die is much more terrible than death itself. So I want to say something about the limitation of physical body versus the sustainability of the spiritual life. Okay, so I want to quote from a shastra called the Trimsika Vijnapti Matwata. This, in English, the 30 verses are manifestation only of the Yogacara practice. This shastra is composed by the Vasubandhu Bodhisattva and translated by Master Xuanzhuang. So according to Yogacara doctrine, our consciousness, the sentient being's consciousness, the structure of consciousness consists of eight consciousness, and the first six sense and the consciousness also belong to the modern psychology. So the first six sense is eye for seeing, ear for hearing, listening, and nose for smelling, and tongue for tasting, and the body for touching, feeling, and the mind for thinking. So these six senses and conscience are going along with our physical body. So when the body is living, so they are functioning. And when our body is dead, then these six senses, they stop functioning. But there are two consciousness, the higher level. There are two deeper level of consciousness. They are they call the seventh consciousness called the manas. The manas, the deepest sense of ego. It's the root of the self-attachment. Why we have the idea of I and the my. It's the my thing, belong to me. I own it. This the ego, the sense of ego is because of the manas consciousness, the self, the ego. And the last one is called alaya consciousness. Alaya consciousness is the store consciousness. The database, which we call, and it's like a reservoir, like a tank, which store, record the process and the consequence of the three kind of karma. Three kind of karma means our bodily behavior, our verbal utterance, and the mental activity. So all these called the three karma. The three karma will be stored in our alaya consciousness, and running forever. And from the scripture said, the alaya consciousness and the manas consciousness, just like the waterfall running forever, never stop. They will never stop. So even our physical body die, the consciousness is still running. So the alaya consciousness is like an ever running water flow or flowing stream. And for those arhat and bodhisattva, through their practice, they can transform and transcend and transform the alaya consciousness and the manas consciousness into wisdom, so that they can liberate from the samsara. But for the average people, because we are not able to do that, so we will go around the samsara. Okay. So our sixth sense organ and conscience, the first sixth sense and conscience will come along with our physical body. But the alaya consciousness will transcend that. So when an individual is dying and is dead, so the first six sense organ and consciousness stop functioning. But the alaya consciousness and the manas consciousness will not stop. It's still running, but because of the physical body is useless, so the consciousness will leave the body and trying to find a new place to be reborn. And where will he or she be is depend on the personal karma. It depends on the personal karma. So in this sense, death does not exist. So absolute meaning of death does not exist. If we define death as the end of life, the totally, absolutely ending of life, and no more, nothing exists, then that kind of death does not exist. The absolute meaning of death does not exist. So actually, it's only have a relative meaning, the relative meaning. So death is by no means a terrible abyss, nor is it an obstacle. it can make tired and hardship life to be temporary rest and then restart. So life without death is unbearable. And because when our physical body, because of, for example, aging or illness or accident and so on, so it's sooner or later, someday, it will stop functioning. And because our body is a material of physical construction, so each physical or all the physical construction in the universe has its limitation, has its operation limitation, including not only our human body, including our Earth. Our Earth still has its lifespan. Our solar system, or even the galaxy, has its own limitation. But our spiritual life, our spiritual, has no ending. It's limitless. And so why I always emphasize that we have to keep our energy, our physical and spiritual energy, when we are dying, because we have to use that kind of energy to keep our mind consciously to connect with Amida Buddha or Jesus Christ. It's very, very important. Okay, so death is just an integral part of life journey. It is definitely not falling into the end, but marching into a brand new start. So death itself is not a problem, whereas how to die and elegantly and gracefully, that is the core issue. So, today my talk had two main points. So I want you to keep in mind the 2 points. So one is that death is the natural mechanism and also a secret and mystery. Death and the regeneration happen in our cell that keep us grow and develop and live well. So death is a healthy phenomenon. That's the point. So death is not abnormality. And the other is that our physical body has a limitation, but our spiritual life, our consciousness, the other consciousness, has no limitation, has no ending, has no ending. That you have to keep these two in your mind, and you have to have a strong conviction of these 2 points. So the ideal ending of lifespan is graceful passing, is to farewell elegantly as one wish. Okay. So we must clearly understand that the ultimate settlement of life and death has far exceeded the limit of science and technology and belong to the spiritual realm. So therefore, we must return to the level of spiritual care in order to resolve the life and death issue. So at the final state of our life, with the final state of our journey of this life, if we want to resolve or at least to improve the plight or the many people were thought the doomed final ending. Well, actually it's not. The fundamental way is to change our basic cognition and attitude toward life and death. So like the ancient people, to restore our ultimate concern for the spiritual dimension of life. So at the end of our life, so do not resort to the modern medical science and technology. You will have to resort to the spiritual practice. So that to pursue your future life. So open-mindedly accepting natural death. So returning to life mechanism of nature. So you have to accept the natural, and even you welcome the natural death. Okay, and prepare for the natural death. So the natural death is not disease. The natural death is not disease, but a life mechanism of nature. So, but unfortunately, the modern medical science and most of the doctor treat natural death as a disease. That's a disaster. So therefore, modern medical and medicine and the medical staff should accept natural death as their basic cognition and literacy. So the general public should also have the psychological preparation and a consensus to accept natural death. We have to accept and even welcome the natural death so that we won't apply a lot of the medical intervention to the dying people. Okay. Okay, next, I gave the epilogue. Okay. So conclusively, the conviction of life after death, or more precisely, life after life, provide more the answer. Not just give you answer, it offer endless hope for all terminally ill patients, children, adults, and for the family. Okay. So life after death and life after life, just not answer. It's the same as it is the same as it really is. It really are as the issue as it should be, as Steve Jobs said. Okay, so you have to accept and welcome natural death. The death is not disease. Natural death is not disease. So do not fear or be afraid of death, but be positively facing it, pondering its meaning, accepting and preparing for its future advent. Okay. So in ancient time, there was a master Huei of Song Dynasty, and he wrote a poem. He said, the flowers of spring, the moon in autumn, the cool breeze in summer, the snow in winter. Should one's heart be free from trouble, a great season is found wherever. Okay. So I also wrote a poem, a short poem, a poem. Okay. Sincerely embrace life and calmly facing death and illness, and carefree to welcome death and continually manage it the next life. Okay. Okay. Well, this is my presentation today. Of course, it cannot solve all the problems, but it's just a beginning. It's a beginning. You can treat it as the episode 1. So we will have more chance to discuss deeply about the life and death issue. So thank you for your attention. Okay.
Thank you, Venerable Dr. Huei for bringing us such a deep discussion about life and death. Personally, I remember learning about how our cells in our body would regenerate every 7 years, but I never associated that with the circulation of life. And before today's lecture, I also didn't understand why we need to live if we were going to die eventually. But Venerable, you talked about viewing life from the perspective of death. So I think I definitely learned a lot from Venerable you and also from Steve Jobs as well. So thank you very much. And now we will move on to our Q&A section and open up for questions from our audience. So from our audience here, we have a lot of questions for Venerable Huei today. Here I have a question for Venerable Huei is, how does this apply to people who die at a young age?
Well, no matter old or young, the spiritual life is forever continuous. So still we can use the Dharma to share with the dying people, to tell even for the young children, you can tell him or her that you can keep your mind in tune with your religious figure. So no matter you are Buddhist or Christian, you can keep your faith and go to your destiny according to your faith, according to your religious belief.
Thank you, Venerable Huei. Our next question here is, we understand that death is part of our life. However, when we face death, we still feel scared because we don't know what happened after death. Can you provide some advice to us?
You can study for Buddhist.
Thank you. And the next question our audience here have posted is, one of the many reasons for the fear of dying is due to unknown after death. For Buddhists, we have the concept of Western Pure Land and many more Buddha land to help us reduce our fear of the unknown. For atheists, that fear can be overwhelming, especially for those that are nearing death. Do you have any comments on that?
Sure. Sure. So you have to prepare beforehand as early as possible. Not only to the issue of life and death, everything in this life, for your learning, for your working, you have to prepare beforehand.
Thank you. Now, moving on to our next question. Our next question we have here is, how or what should we tell our family and friends around us to realize that death is a natural path and that we should face death with a positive attitude and prepare for our future destination after the death of our physical body?
Well, you have to study. First, you have to study, do some research, and you can read my book. That will provide you a lot of information. So and one thing is, don't just talk the philosophy. You have to tell a story. To tell a story, use the life experience, the story in your life, to try to to convince your family.
Thank you, Venerable Huei. We have another question here, which is, what would you say about people who do not die peacefully? How does one have a graceful passing if they die as a victim of violence or die with extreme suffering?
That's why we have to prepare beforehand. Beforehand, you don't have to wait. You can't wait just to something happen. So so before the rain comes, you have to prepare umbrella as early as possible.
So the next question we have here is, I understand our alaya consciousness will continue to stay with us to the next life. but I think the biggest fear is the unknown when it comes to death. We don't know where we go after we die, and we will not have any feeling after we die. In addition, the moment of dying is actually painful to our physical body, according to some sutras. So, how can we better prepare ourselves for death besides daily meditation?
Not only, well, for most people, not only the life after death we don't know, even the life in this life. For example, for a college student, for college, what is the future? I can't see my future. You understand that? So let alone to say the future after death, even the future in this life. But someone will know the trend. So we have to, that's why we have to study. We have to think. We have to think. The three learning in Buddhism, the learning, thinking, and the practice is very important. So of course, for example, for a scientist, most of the world we don't know, but we have to research and explore. You understand that? So the knowledge will not come out, falling from the heaven. You have to develop, you have to take on a journey. You have you have to take on the journey to explore, to understand, to research, investigate. Then to make the unknown become known. Okay?
Thank you, Venerable. The next question our audience have posted is, what about death from accidents or preventable tragedies? How to think about this?
Well, accident was real accident, but on the other hand, many people try to experience a very dangerous adventure. You know, many adventure, many activities, very danger. So this is a very subtle part of this. The accident, the tragedy act also. For example, when a soldier go to the battlefield, is that sure? Still, they can have some mental, psychological preparation. So this is through that make the meditation practice very important. If you have meditation practice in your daily life, so when you face the tragic accident, you will keep a calm mind, and and the conviction of the future life will make you calm. You can make you calm. Okay.
Yes. So the next question is, I always have in my mind about death, and I see people who are in their 70s or 80s, they don't want to hear death. So how can I convince them of inevitable death?
Death is a blessing. Natural death is blessing. Well, so maybe next time in the future I will tell you how to prepare. Okay, I just mentioned, if you were prepared in your daily life, then you will know beforehand. You will know beforehand when the time will arriving. When will time? But the precondition is that you will not be falling into the dementia. Your mind is clear, and you accept natural death, and you practice. Then you will know beforehand when you are going, when you will be departing. And if you, for example, if you practice the Pure Land, the Amita Buddha will notice you when he will come to accept you. And another is that our physical body will tell you. Our physical body will tell you when the time is up. And to know beforehand, to know one's death beforehand is not a monopoly of human beings. Even the animal, they can know its time. For example, the dog and the cat, and for example, in the elephant in the wild, the elephant in the wild land, all the elephant know their timing. They know beforehand. So they will have a very natural peaceful death. So live well. Don't drag your life past past your consciousness. Don't fall into the dementia. So before that, you already connected with the Amida Buddha and go to Pure Land. You understand that? Okay.
Thank you. Okay. And our next question here is, do you recommend that people should make a testament or a will to prepare for death?
Sure. But that's not the most important. It's for the preparation of the, for example, the funeral and the other thing. But the most important is that you will have, you will have a clear mind where you are going to be reborn to Pure Land or to heaven. That's the most important. And make the testament or will to prepare for death is for the social issue. This is for the social affair, not the spiritual affair. The social affair for your family to take care of you after your death. You understand? It's the social affair, but the most important part is your spiritual affair. Okay.
Yeah. So our next question here is, how could the dying let go of their attachment, especially the loved ones?
By practice, by meditation, by thinking, by study. It's not a knowledge, it's experience. Okay.
Yeah, so and our next question, maybe Venerable, you have already answered this as well. How can you overcome the fear when the death comes near you?
Well, if you know death is a natural phenomenon and you know there's a life after death, then death is not so terrible as you think. On the contrary, unable to die is much more terrible than death.
Thank you, Venerable. And next up, our question from our audience is, do you agree with euthanasia?
Euthanasia, I don't agree. I strongly disagree euthanasia, because euthanasia is to give you a fatal injection to make your body shut down immediately. It's a stupid way. You have a much better way. Why euthanasia? Euthanasia is to give you a poisonous fatal shot to make your body shut down immediately. No, you have to practice to let your body shut down naturally. Okay. Next one.
Yes. So our next question is, when a person dies and then comes back to life, is this the alaya decides that the current body is still the best?
Well, not the alaya decides, the karma, the personal karma attract or pull an individual to go on in the samsara. Not the alaya, but the karma. Okay, karma, not alaya. It's a karma.
Thank you.
Okay.
Our next question here we have is, if you have very good concentration in your meditation, will we know when we are about to die? I heard a story about one old man who knew when he was about to die and called his big family. Is this possible?
Sure. Not only possible, definitely. If you, many old people know beforehand, and most of the Pure Land practitioner will know beforehand. For example, my father and mother, before they passed away, they know around 3 months ago, 3 months before, they already know. They already knew their time is coming. Time is coming. So you have to believe that. And next one.
Yes. So the next question we have is, usually we feel very bad when our relatives pass away. How to get away from the depression?
How to get away depression? Okay, you need Dharma. You need Buddha Dharma. Not medicine. The Buddha Dharma, depression. You have to change your view of life and death. You have to change. You have a more deep understanding of the meaning of life. Okay, the Dharma, the Buddha Dharma is very important. Okay, next one.
Yeah. Okay. So the next one we have is, if our ancestors have been reborn in other places, then what is the reason we still worship our ancestors?
What is the reason we worship our ancestors? In the Chinese tradition, it's a filial. It's a filial piety. We call it filial piety. Filial piety is the emotion. Filial piety, our memory and our respect and our thanks to our ancestor. Even they have been reborn in other place. It's still, for example, not only to your ancestors, for example, your family, your relatives, they go far away to the other country. You still remember them, you still want to say send some greeting to them. Right? It's kind of greeting. It's kind of concern. So no matter where they are, when they are, not for the deceased ancestor, but for the living family and relative, they are far away from us. We still want to express our greeting, our our memory, our concern to them. That's the same token. Okay.
Okay. I also have other questions here. So
Okay.
when we face serious sickness and might pass away anytime, how do we overcome the pain of sickness and fear of death?
Well, I have to say, we have to prepare beforehand. We have to prepare beforehand. So to overcome the fear of death, we have to cultivate a belief and a conviction that death is not the ending. The death is through understanding. So how to overcome the fear is through understanding. For example, in this life, we may face many unknown situations. We may have a feeling of fear or horror. If you go to an unknown place, if you meet unknown people, if you will be assigned a job you don't know how to do, then you will have this kind of fear, right? So you have to make yourself acquainted with that situation, with that person, or with that job. So understanding is the overdose, is the medicine, is the cure of fear. So you have to understand. If you fully understand, then you won't fear. If you don't understand, you will fear. You'll be afraid. And the pain has different level. The physical pain, the psychological suffering, mental pain, and the spiritual pain. And the physical pain is only a small part. The physical pain can use the medicine. for the painkiller, some medicine to overcome the physical pain. But for the psychological and the mental and the spiritual pain and suffering, there's no medicine. So you have to have faith, the understanding, conviction, so that the Dharma is very important. The Buddha Dharma is very important. That will make you overcome. And so we have to study. We have to study. We can't just sitting and thinking, and nothing will happen. So you have to diligently study. For example, you read our Master Xing Yun, his book both in Chinese and English, and you can also read my book. So understanding is the most powerful medicine, the powerful cure. Okay.
Thank you, Venerable. And that brings us to the end of our Q&A session today. Thank you for answering all the questions, and thank you to everyone who has posted a question.
Well, I want to say something that today's presentation is only a beginning, like a introduction or a prelude. So I hope in the future we will have more opportunity to discuss in more detail, even because I have accumulated 50 years of thinking and study, and I also have 25 years of hospice care experience. So I have a lot of story to share with you, and more detail. But because today only 1.5 hours, we cannot talk all this. But in the future, we will talk. We can arrange a series of talk. We can explain to you about, for example, about the euthanasia, the detail about euthanasia, the suicide, and the other thing, and the terminal your patient, how to prepare. I have a strategy. I have a step-by-step strategy to share with you. So hope for the next time.
Yes.
Thank you.
We will turn this into a to be continued series. And I believe all of our audience will also be looking forward for the next, hopefully in the near future, we can have another talk with Venerable Huei as well. So that brings us to the end of today's public talk. Our next English Cloud lecture series will be on the 26th of June, where UC Berkeley and University of the West Professor Dr. Louis Lancaster will be talking about wisdom and ability. And our next Chinese Cloud lecture will be on April 25th on the topic of T-Earth, 身重行动, hosted by BLIA World Headquarters Secretary General Venerable Huei, along with 3 panelists across different disciplines. So thank you very much, and thank you everyone for coming today.